Apple now selling the iPhone 4S in 20 more countries. An untethered jailbreak for iOS 5.0.1 is coming to A4 base models. And Apple's Mate for iPod will soon support Bluetooth. All this and more coming up right now. Hello everybody, I'm Jaime Rivera and welcome to the Pocketnow iReview, the show we go through all this week's cool and the not so cool inside the world of Apple's iOS devices. Let's start this week off with the cool. Apple keeps selling more phones and services across the planet. First of all, the iPhone 4S is now being sold in 20 more countries around the world, which include Brazil, Chile, some Middle Eastern countries like, for example, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and well, it's 20 countries, so hit the link in the description if you want the full list. Now, the sad part here is that Brazilians have to end up paying $1,410 for a 16GB model on the official store. Now that's crazy. I mean, even if iPhones were built in Brazil, why do they have to pay so much for a freaking phone? And well, Apple has also begun rolling their iTunes store in Latin America, for those of you that didn't know. In the past, you could only buy movies and music in the US store and some other countries, so it's really good to see that Apple's now rolling out that to other countries. And along with the launch of the iTunes store, you can now also get iTunes Match internationally, though it's kind of started in a rocky start because it seems that Apple even begun offering refunds to people because apparently it wasn't ready. And then eventually it was, but still, it's out there and that's what's important. So make sure you pay for that because $25 a month will allow you to legalize all your music. Legalize. Now, an interesting note recently shows that iOS app developers make 300% more money in revenue in selling apps in the App Store than in the Android market. Now, the question here is what triggers that? I mean, if there are more Android smartphones in the market, therefore there should be more Android customers. Now, how is it that consumption habits are different? Could it be that there are better quality apps in iOS? Or could it also be that there is simply a better app store? Now, leave us a comment down below and tell us if you actually purchase more iOS applications or not. Speaking of growth, Morgan Stanley recently revised their estimates for what they expect for Apple to sell next year. They're expecting Apple to sell 190 million iPhones in 2012. Now, probably the biggest question will be, where will all that market come from? Well, Android is not losing any market and Windows Phone's also growing, so it could also be the fact that smartphones are being sold more now than feature phones. But aside from that, remember that RIM just reported 71% loss in earnings, 71% in earnings for their BlackBerry sales. Now, could it be the fact that, well, two CEOs can't do the job of one? Imagine that. Now, Apple has recently released iOS 5.1 Beta 2 to developers, and well, lots of positive improvements, though sadly not the ones we want. Probably the only interesting one is the fact that you can finally now delete photos from your photo stream if you, for example, took some photos that you don't like. You don't want them uploaded to your photo stream and then not be able to delete them unless you delete them all. There are also some intimate pictures that people take that they don't want to share, like for example for, MySpace. And then, well, sadly, it's just good to see that it's happening, but what took you so long, Apple? Aside from that, well, we do get information about an iPad 3 coming as of iOS 5.1 Beta 2. Sadly, no iPhone 5's been mentioned, so that could be later on in the pipeline. No battery improvements yet, people. Sorry about that. Not sure what to make of that. Seems that Apple's not having a really good time with iOS updates. Now let's talk about jailbreaks. Rumors have it that the dev team is very close to providing an untethered jailbreak for iOS 5.0.1 on any device that's rocking an A4 chip, meaning the iPod Touch 4th generation and the iPhone 4 and also the iPad 1st generation. The dev team's own Pod2G came on record and tweeted that you can now update safely to this OS because he's soon to figure it out. Now, interesting enough, it seems that things won't be the same for those customers that have an A5 chip. Like, for example, those that have an iPad 2 or an iPhone 4S. Now, remember that Comex also brought an untethered jailbreak for the iPad 2 in the past, so it could be the case that they surprise us, but it's so sad to see Comex working for Apple now. Such an irony, don't you think? Now, moving on to this week's coverage, make sure you catch Brandon's recent video on Fatbooth, Baldbooth, and Agingbooth. I, for one, am not interested on knowing how am I going to look when I get bald in the future, but hey, it seems to be a very compelling application. People love it. And for $1, a lot of people are trying it. It's on the top 10 apps out there, so give it a try. Kind of cool. And well, aside from that, catch his recent article on how to get background changes on Notification Center for those of you that have a jailbroken version of iOS 5 on your device. Looks really great. Give that a try. In other recent news, have Apple meeting up with the Made for iPod team of developers and manufacturers because, well, they're planning to expand it. Currently, Made for iPod is only being supported for wired devices, and, well, if you wanted something wireless, you'd have to wait. Some of them work, some of them don't because they're really expensive. Currently, AirPlay is only available through Wi-Fi because of the protocol and because of all the streaming that it has to do so. It seems that Apple's planning to bring this to Bluetooth, which is much cheaper for everybody, though sadly, it'll only work on Bluetooth 4.0 enabled devices. That's the catch. So, unless you have an iPhone 4S or MacBook Air, you're currently stuck if the future of AirPlay enabled Made for iPod devices will only support that protocol. So, make sure you update your device in the future and make sure it has Bluetooth 4.0 too. That does it for the cool. Let's continue on with the not so cool. And an interesting note is the fact that Apple never releases the same version of iOS twice, or even 3 times for that matter. And well, Apple has just released iOS 5.0.1 twice, aside from the official launch, to customers of the iPhone 4S because they want to fix the errors for the invalid SIM problem that a lot of customers are reporting. Now, want to know the funny part? They haven't figured it out yet. It seems that customers are still complaining of the problem, and just wonder what's going on with the Cupertino gang recently. It seems that their ability to fix iOS problems is really becoming an issue for them. They probably need more Jailbreak team members out there and allowing them to find more exploits. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jaime Rivera. Remember to give us a thumbs up if you like what you saw. That's it for now.